Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you. It is a beautiful Monday morning, 7 o'clock a.m. Vail time. And boy, was it a beautiful morning this morning. It was 75 degrees, which is really kind of cold considering it's been hot for the last week and there's been no rain. But we live here in the desert, and sometimes at night it gets really, really cold. I know when I grew up in Phoenix, overnight, sometimes it would never get below 100 for months on end, and that's pretty miserable. That's why I like living in Vail. Hey, thanks for joining me this morning. Have you ever had to deal with teen boys? Well, then you will appreciate this story. If you've had not to deal with teen boys yet, if you haven't had any, or brothers or sisters or whatever, this story will be very enlightening to you. It tells you how they think or they don't think. Before we get to that, though, I'd like to thank you for joining me. If you're joining me, I have no idea if you are. It is 7 o'clock, not 8 o'clock on Monday morning. This will be the new normal for a while. I was thinking about this. My children all live in the central time zone. So if they wanted to watch live this on Facebook, when I was doing it at 8, that would be 10 o'clock their time. Well, now it's 9 o'clock their time. And if when we go into the daylight savings time thing where it switches an hour earlier, it'll be 8 o'clock their time, which is just fascinating to me because that's actually kind of at the beginning of the day for them, which is interesting. So, but right now it is 7 o'clock a.m. Vail time, and it's 9 o'clock a.m. Minnesota and Chicago and Austin and all those central time zone places. Houston, Texas. We got some family there too. Anyway, so what else? Yeah, today is the new routine, the new normal, going for a while. I think we figured it out in the Hook household how this is all going to work. Who's doing what and when and all that sort of thing. And it seems like it's all going to just come fine with this 7 o'clock thing. So thank you. If you're joining me now at 7 o'clock, go ahead and say hi to everybody. If you're not here, you're watching it later. I guess you could still, post something on YouTube and say, hey, one of the things that I'd like to do as we maybe you could answer this question. Think about it, and then if you want to post it on YouTube or Facebook. Have you ever had to raise a teenage boy? And was it easy peasy or was it crazy daisy? And either way, let me know if you have any stories, and we'll kind of maybe, if I can share them, I'll share them, the story about raising teenage boys, because they're not easy. We had 3 girls who were, they've got their own issues, but boys, as we'll find out today, boys have their own issues too. And it's really just quite interesting and challenging to raise any children, especially in today's culture, because they get so much influence from so many different areas, and not all of them are positive. So, birthdays, we have no birthdays today. Sorry. We've got, I think, one tomorrow, but none today. And again, we are at 7 o'clock a.m., and we're going to be this way for a while. As a matter of fact, I think we might be this way for quite a while. We'll just have to see. If you are a member, if you're associated with our church here in Vail, Christ Lutheran Vail, we have communion this Sunday, August 16th. And then we'll do a town hall on August 29th. You don't want to miss both of those. The communion's in person. The town hall will be a video presentation. And again, I still think, as I look at the numbers, I think we are very, very rapidly coming into a place where we've reached, for whatever reason, either herd immunity or something. But the R naught is definitely below 0 or below 1. And it would not surprise me at all if the governor here in Arizona came out and said, hey, looks like we can start gathering together in groups larger than 10. So that would be great, because then we will definitely do that. All right, so those are the announcements I have. And I'm not going to do any coronavirus stuff. except to just let you note that the cases in Arizona are going down. So we are in a story today in Genesis chapter 25. We've seen Abraham has died, and his wife Sarah died. He found a wife for his son Isaac. Isaac has found Rebekah, and Ishmael, the other son, and Hagar have gone off to their own place. Although Ishmael and Isaac got back together again to bury their father Abraham, that was kind of a cool end to an epical period in the history of the world. And now we're kind of tracking along with the story of Isaac. And the reason why all of these people are so important, well, for several reasons. One is that they're all in the lineage of Jesus, right? The Old Testament promise to Abraham was not just to Abraham and his clan, but that ultimately that in the loins of Abraham, in the lineage of Abraham, would be the Messiah, the promised one. And that promised one would be the Messiah to redeem mankind. And so you see all the great characters of the Old Testament kind of follow this lineage, which eventually goes to Jesus. And so not every son can be in the lineage of Jesus. You have to find, only one of the sons can actually be in the lineage. It's just the way it works. And we find out that the lineage goes through Abraham, and as we'll see over the next few days, the lineage now goes through Isaac. It could have been through Esau, but it goes through Isaac. So, it could have gone through Ishmael, but it went through Isaac. So now we're going to start in Genesis chapter 25, and we're going to begin in verse 19, and we're just start reading and see where it takes us. So this is the account of the family line of Abraham's son, Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. Okay, I just have to stop here real quick. I don't know what it is about the loins of this family, but they remain childless. If you remember, Sarah was childless for a long time. Abraham was childless for a long time. And now Isaac has married Rebekah, and they are childless. But Isaac prays to the Lord. You've got to wonder if this whole idea of being childless in a society where having children is so very important, if that isn't a testing of faith for this couple. And because it is typically what happens in life when struggles happen, is that it tests our faith, and we either get stronger in our faith or it can destroy our faith. And prayer is a great way to help anything strengthen your faith. If you're going through a challenging time in your life and you want to use that time to grow your faith, the best way to do that, really to put fertilizer on your root system, as I say, is to be in God's Word and to pray. And when you do that, you stay connected to the Creator of the universe, and He fills you with His love and His joy and His peace and all that He has, because you're a child of the kingdom. And when you get through to the other side, you will see how He sustains you during those times, and that helps you grow in your faith. So actually, pandemics, all sorts of things that happen in your life that can be very challenging. The more mature you are, the longer you've lived in this life, the more you realize is that there are tremendous opportunities to grow in your faith and to get closer to God. They are the times that you take leaps forward in your faith and in your closeness to God. So Isaac prays to the Lord on his behalf of his wife because she's childless. She has no child, and so Isaac, instead of turning away from God, leans into God and tries to get closer to God and prays to God. So let's see what happens. I'll do 21 again. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. And the Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. And the babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." So this is a foretelling of the two children that are in Rebekah's womb. And it's not just that there's two children in the womb, but that these two children represent two nations, two peoples. And one of those nations is going to be the father of Jesus, and the other nation is not going to be the father of Jesus. And there can only be one nation that's the father of Jesus, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. You can't have two brothers and one of them becomes, the line of, well, I mean, you could, but the direct line through the male lineage, it can only go through one person. And what God told Rebekah is that two nations, two boys are in your womb. So you have twins. And each one of these will be a nation. Each one of these will take a lineage from Isaac, and they'll go in different directions. And only one of those directions, of course, will be in the lineage of Jesus. And let's see, the one people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Now, the fact that the older is going to serve the younger is very, very curious, because typically in Jewish tradition, the first one to come out of the womb is considered to be the older one, even in twins. And that's the one where, where everybody would say, this is the older brother. This is lots of rights and privileges come from being the oldest one, even if they're twins. And but that's not what God says. It says the older, so the first one to come out, will serve the younger. And one people, remember there's going to be two peoples. It's not just two guys coming out of the womb, but it's two peoples coming out of the womb. One people will be stronger than the other. And we'll have to figure out which one God was talking about. Which one is the stronger? Is it the lineage through the firstborn, or is it the lineage through the secondborn? We may find out in the story and see what that is. But let's just continue reading on. All right? So, when the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. So the first one out's a ginger, and he's red and he's hairy, and they named him Esau. Esau being red and hairy, I suppose. I mean, that's kind of what it means. I mean, just from the text. You might say, if you look at the name Esau, it's got lots of different roots to it. I guess it could mean hairy, it could mean red, it could mean to cover. Some have said it's the finisher. But I think based upon the text, it just means red and hairy. Esau means red and hairy. And then after that, verse 26, after that, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. And Jacob again means to grasp the heel. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. So only one of them is red and hairy. The other one doesn't appear to be red and hairy. So they're definitely not, what do they call that? Identical twins. They're not identical twins. They're fraternal twins. They both exist in the same womb, two different eggs, both get fertilized, and both are in the womb. Whereas opposed to identical twins, which is one egg, and then during the process, it actually splits early on enough to create two identical people in the womb. And I've always been fascinated by identical twins. We had two sets of identical twins in my school growing up. And then we have one set of twins that were not identical. They were fraternal twins, right? And it was really fascinating to see the two twins. They were just so much. I mean, they had their own personality. I mean, you get to know their personalities, once you get to know them, and you definitely know which one's which. But Honestly, they would look identical. Of course, identical twins love to play jokes on their friends and on their parents. Some of them get married and their spouses, they play jokes on their spouses. We have actually in our congregation one young lady. Well, I think she's older, and she is an identical twin. She has an identical twin sister, and well, that's Lola. If you know Lola, she's got an identical twin sister. And I wonder if they've played jokes in their family. I'm sure they have. But this isn't identical twins. This is just twins. Let's see. And here we go. This is interesting. Verse 27. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Oh my goodness. So this is just so true, isn't it? So you have two boys coming out at the same time, and one of the boys is a manly man, right? He's hairy, he's red, he likes to go out into the field, he loves to hunt game and bring game home to cook. Mom cooks the wild wildebeest, and Isaac loves to eat the wild wildebeest, and he's very proud of his son who goes out and faces and challenges danger and death every day because he's a big, strong, bursting at the seams, Gaston from Beauty and the Beast type of a man who loves to go out and shoot guns. Well, he doesn't have guns. He loves to go out and kill the wild beast. And then you have, the younger boy, Jacob. Now, Jacob is not the manly man. Jacob likes to stay at home in the tents. I think that's probably just, a polite way of saying that Jacob is a mama's boy. And Jacob likes to stay around the village. He doesn't like to go out too much. He doesn't like to risk life and limb to go out and hunt game. He's perfectly content to let his brother do that. He's more content being closer to home. He might be the one that plants a crop. He might be the one that maybe cooks food. He might be the one that, does more of the domestic stuff around the tent of the place where this family is living. And the reason why I laugh a little bit on the story is because this is so much my brother and me. I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than I am. So we're not twins, but in so many ways we are so alike. But he's the manly man. He was the baseball player, the football player. He loved sports, rough and tumble, and my dad coached baseball, and my brother played first base, and he's a pitcher. He's a lefty. My brother's a lefty. He loves to golf. He loves to just be outdoors doing that kind of stuff. He loves to watch sports on TV. He actually was a bodybuilder I think he still is, but he was a bodybuilder in high school and college, and even entered a couple competitions. He won a bodybuilding competition all over the state of Arizona one year. He worked very, very hard at that, and he won. And it's quite an impressive accomplishment to be able to do that. To have, of course, this was back in the Arnold Schwarzenegger days of Gold's Gym and stuff like that, where these guys would go and they would try to get as much muscle and mass as possible, and then they would stop eating anything for a while to just let those muscles, they get all the fat off their body so the muscles would bulge. And that was my brother. I was not that. I was more, when I was growing up, what I enjoyed most of doing was singing. I was in the Phoenix Boys Choir, which was a singing group. I liked, being outside and doing the, tag football and stuff like that, but I didn't like the really rough and tumble stuff. It wasn't just it wasn't my personality. I didn't enjoy it as much as my brother did. My brother was the quintessential Esau, and I was the quintessential Jacob, right? Two totally different personalities, two totally different things that we love to go after. I mean, And, both of us have our unique gifting from God. I am more, I don't want to think, I think deep thoughts, and I like to think about problems long and hard. I like to find solutions to problems. That's kind of what really fills me with joy. If you were to ask my brother, what fills you with joy? Watching a football game, or, sitting with a puzzle and trying to figure out a mathematical equation, trying to do a geometric proof, he would definitely say watching the football game. For me, it's actually sitting and doing a geometric proof, just using my giftedness that God has given me in that area. And that's just who we are. And so when I read the story of Jacob and Esau, it just so much hits home, and I so much identify with Jacob. But we're all, in a way, we're all Jacob and we're all Esau, right? We all have bits of these people in us, because we're going to find out that Esau, I don't want it to make it seem like, Jacob is a better, because he's not. They both just are different. And Jacob and Esau are both gifted by God with different things, and it'll come out in the story. But in my family, I identify with Jacob, and I'm sure my brother would identify with Esau. So Isaac, the dad, has a taste for wild game, and of course he loves Esau, and Rebekah loves Jacob. And I know my father loves me. I get along very well with my father, but I must admit that my brother's 4 years older, so my father has known my brother 4 years longer than he's known me. And my dad loved to coach my brother's baseball team. Was it the Giants? Yeah, it was the Giants, the Little League baseball team. My dad was the coach for many, many years. So I would go to the game, I'd watch. It was fun. But it was not, I didn't really enjoy it to the point my dad, after my brother stopped playing baseball, I wasn't a very good baseball player. I was in the outfield. Eventually I ended up being on the team as a very, rarely would you use me if somebody got injured, but most of the time I was with the clipboard doing stats, sitting on the bench, just, what was a ball, what was a strike, and all that, and just keeping track of the game that way, because that's just how my personality is. And I loved the game, but I loved the statistics and the statisticians of the game more than I liked actually playing the game, which is just how God created me. For years, this is interesting too, for years, I felt like I was a failure, because that's just, I didn't, because most of the guys that you meet in high school, they're all love football and sports and all that sort of thing. I think there's just very few of us that we really would rather solve a geometric proof than play sports. Although I did play sports. I did swimming in high school. But anyway, but that's an individual sport, which is interesting too. It's not a group sport. And golf, which I also did, is more of an individual sport than a group sport. So each one of us have different things that draw us and attract us. We're all created differently. But it took me a while to realize that God created me for a reason, and I don't have to be a big, huge baseball player or a football player to be loved by God. And that's just one of those things that you learn in life. I just don't have those gifts, but I have different gifts. And all gifts from God are from God, and they're necessary, and they're given to you for a reason. And I suppose I will continue to learn this lesson till the day I die. Now I feel very, very comfortable in the gifts that God's given me, but I still continue to grow and see how the gifts that he's given me are really, really good in some areas, and they're really, really horrible in other areas. And, trying to figure out who you are and why God created you the way you are is a lifelong journey. We may find that out in Jacob. All right, so the thing you need to know, though, is that, so in my personality, there's a thing called an Enneagram test. And on the Enneagram, I'm a 5, which means I'm an investigator. which means I think investigative thoughts. I tackle a problem and I grab a hold of it and I don't let go of it until I've figured out the problem. And I'm in the realm of the Enneagram, which deals with fear. So the way I deal with the world around me is I try to understand it. Other people deal with the world around them in different ways. But when you're a 6, you deal with it with understanding. But there's another one that's in that realm that's just basically someone who's, they live with a lot of fear. They don't understand, they're worried all the time about things that could happen in their life. And you have to understand that it is likely that Jacob is somewhere in that area, that Jacob is either, pure fear, like he lives his life in fear, or he lives his life by trying to figure things out, and we'll have to find out. I mean, it'd be interesting to see. I wonder if anybody's done an Enneagram on Jacob. Oh, I'll have to figure that one out. But the thing you need to know is that he lives more in the fear area than his brother, Esau, which, he likes to just go out and attack animals. I mean, if a bear came after Esau would run to the bear with a stick and, engage the bear and try to beat him up, hoping that he'd win. If Jacob meets a bear, he's going to try to run away from the bear as fast as possible, or maybe stay still so the bear doesn't attack him, or, make himself look as big as possible. They're definitely two different boys. That is who they are. And that's who me and my brother are. Why don't we continue on? So once when Jacob was cooking some stew, so we know that Jacob likes to cook, Esau came in from the open country and he was famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." And that is also why he's called Edom. So apparently Edom is red. So Esau is called, he's red. That's why he's called Edom. Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then he got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. I mean, who does this? All right, so this tells me that Jacob is a clever young boy, that he maybe leans on the intellectual, I don't want to say, he's an investigator. He thinks his way through life as opposed to selling his birthright for stew. That has to be the dumbest thing anybody's ever done. I mean, the birthright is that you're the oldest son, all rights, privileges, everything goes through you because you are the first one out of the womb. That's your birthright. And you're going to sell it for stew? What kind of dumb ox does that? It just is fascinating to me that he would be so silly to sell his birthright. I think later on, the birthright, depending upon how this goes, sometimes the eldest gets everything and keeps the tribe together. If the tribe is definitely going to split up, then the eldest gets a double portion, or maybe even a triple portion of the estate, of the inheritance, because he's the firstborn. Apparently Esau cares less about that. He probably thinks, right? What does he love to do most, right? He loves to go out and hunt and, kill the wildebeest, bring it back home, and that's what he loves to do. What does he care about inheritances and birthrights and stuff like that? He doesn't care. As long as he's got his club and his stone and whatever he has to kill, wild game, he's going to be perfectly happy. He's going to be completely fulfilled in life. That is just who he is. Jacob, on the other hand, he's like, I would like to amass whatever I can because I don't have the same skills that Esau has. So I have to trade and barter and cook and do all those sort of things. And the way I'm going to survive in the future is if I have a bit of an inheritance. So it's interesting, but they're both created this way. and they both end up doing, the birthright ends up in Jacob's lap because of this stupid thing. And it's probably okay that it happened this way, right? I mean, in the big picture, I don't know if Esau needs the birthright. I think Jacob does need it. So, God has his own way of doing his own thing, and God's will be done no matter what. But you got to admit that it's pretty stupid for Esau because, and let's just be honest, if you've ever had a teenage boy, they don't necessarily do the things logically that they're supposed to do. I've thought about this a lot because I've seen so many teenage boys do things that I just think are dumber than a sack of rocks. And it doesn't happen necessarily to teenage girls. Teenage girls are very emotional, but they're smart, right? I mean, they're almost too smart. But teenage boys, they just do dumb things. And if you look at the psychology, here, let's look at this. Let's look at brain development. Your brain is growing. My wife teaches at Pima Community College. One of the things she teaches is brain theory. So we have a lot of discussions about brain stuff. And the brain as it's developing, you got different, you get the prefrontal cortex, the intelligence portion of the brain, and then you have the amygdala, which, is the emotional portion of the brain. Well, as you're growing, it grows at different rates. And the thinking part of a male brain, you need to listen to this, the thinking part of the male brain does not fully develop until well late into the 20s, as opposed to the female brain, where that part, the thinking part, develops much, 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 much earlier. And I have a theory for this, and the theory is that this is why men do stupid things to impress women so that they can get a mate, right? It's just the way that God created us to do things to impress women to get, to find a woman to fall in love with you. I mean, that's look at World War II, right? What happened in World War II? If you wanted to impress a woman during World War II, what was the one thing you did? You went off to war, right? And the braver you are, the more heroic you are. Actually, they did studies on this back then, where they would tell women about, this guy went off to war and he won this battle. He was very heroic, and women found that extremely attractive. As opposed to the man who didn't go off to war, or maybe didn't, put on the uniform or whatever, that women did. They actually have studies showing that that women are attracted to this, and we know this. And guys, for whatever reason, when they're in their early 20s, they love to go and fight wars. They love to be in battles. They love to engage, in all these kind of things, unless you've got my personality, which is an investigator. And I don't like to do that kind of stuff at all. It doesn't appeal to me. But for the vast majority of guys out there, they love to do rough and tumble and fight and that sort of thing. And so Jacob is definitely, and I was going to say that that's why I think you get wars fighting, that's why you use young men to go fight your wars, right? You have to use young men whose brain hasn't fully formed, because once the brain forms and once the boy, becomes married and starts having children, he might fight a war to protect his nation because of chivalry, and there is that, and all of us have that. But just the desire to go fight a war, that's definitely a young brain that hasn't fully formed yet. So it's kind of a long narrative about that. But anyway, so Jacob gets the birthright from Esau, which is as it should be. And maybe I'll pick up the story tomorrow on that, because I have one more thought on that I want to talk about. But it's getting late. So, hey, thanks for joining me today. I hope this 7 o'clock time works. You could be watching this at 8 o'clock, because at 8 o'clock, this recording is completely available. If you are watching at 8 o'clock, go ahead and post hello. Whatever you're watching this, go ahead and post a couple notes. If you have raised a boy or, had a brother, or a son or a grandson that you want to tell a funny story about, go ahead and do that. Share it with the rest of us. And hey, thanks for joining me. Let's close in prayer. Dear God, thanks for creating each of us so unique. Thank you for the many blessings that we have. We have the greatest blessing of being birthright into your kingdom because of Jesus. Be with us until we meet again. In his name we pray. Amen. All right, so that's the end of today. And thank you so much for joining me. God's richest blessings to you. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.